Good day to everyone. Now we will discuss about feminist ethics. The reference that we are using is the book of James Ratios, The Elements of Moral Philosophy, 7th edition by Stuart Ratios, 2012, page 146 to 156. James Ratios begins with the question, do women and men think differently about ethics? Historically, the notion that men and women think differently has been used to justify discrimination against women. According to Aristotle, because women are not as rational as men, they are naturally ruled by men. Immanuel Kant agreed, saying that women lack civil personality and should not have a public voice. Jean-Jacques Rousseau attempted to put a positive spin on this by emphasizing that men and women simply have different virtues. However, it soon became clear that men's virtues fit them for leadership, whereas women's virtues fit them for home and heart. Given those contexts about the statements said by various philosophers, it's not surprising that the women's movement of the 1960s and 1970s denied that men and women have different psychological needs. The idea that men are rational and women are emotional was dismissed as a stereotype. Nature, it was said, makes no mental or moral distinction between the sexes. And when there appear to be differences, it is only because women have been conditioned to behave in feminine ways by an oppressive system. However, most feminists now believe that women think differently than men. They add, however, that women's way of thinking are not inferior to men's, nor do the differences justify prejudice. On the contrary, female ways of thinking provide insights that male-dominated fields have missed. Thus, by paying attention to the unique approach of women, we can make progress in previously stalled subjects. Ethics is said to be a top contender for this treatment. The male way of thinking, which appeals to impersonal principles, abstracts away the details that give each situation its unique flavor. Women, according to Gilligan, find it more difficult to ignore those details. Gilligan contends that women's basic moral orientation is one of caring, taking care of others in a personal way rather than simply caring about humanity in general. Women's moral weakness manifests in apparent diffusion and confusion of judgment, writes Gilligan, is thus inseparable from women's moral strength, an overriding concern with relationships and responsibilities. Other feminists have taken these ideas and shaped them into their own brand of ethics. Caring, empathy, feeling with others, being sensitive to each other's feelings, all may be better guides to what morality requires in actual context than abstract rules of reason or rational calculation, or at least they may be necessary components of an adequate morality, says Virginia Held, 1929. Is it true that women and men think differently? Carol Gilligan published In a Different Voice in 1982. Since the publication of Gilligan's book, psychologists have conducted hundreds of studies on gender, emotions, and morality. These studies reveal some distinctions between men and women. Women tend to perform better than men on empathy tests. Furthermore, brain scans show that women are less likely than men to enjoy seeing people punished who have treated them unfairly, possibly because women empathize with those who have wronged them. Finally, women appear to value close personal relationships more than men, who value larger networks of shallow relationships. Women specialize in the narrow sphere of intimate relationships, as Roy Boymister put it. Men are experts in the larger group. Women and men most likely have different perspectives on ethics. These distinctions, however, cannot be significant. It's not as if women make decisions that men cannot understand, or vice versa. Men can understand the value of caring relationships, even if they need to be reminded from time to time. Women, on the other hand, will almost certainly agree that human life is more valuable than money. When we look at individuals, we see that some men are particularly caring, whereas some women rely heavily on abstract principles. Clearly, the sexes do not exist in separate moral universes. One scholarly article examined 180 studies and discovered that women are only slightly more caring than men, and men are only slightly more just. Even this watered down conclusion, however, invites the question, why should women be, on average, more caring than men? There appear to be two options on why women, on average, are more caring than men. We could start by looking for a social explanation. Perhaps women are more concerned because of the social roles they play. Women have traditionally been expected to do the housework and care for the children. Even if this expectation is sexist, women have frequently performed these functions, and it's easy to see how caring for a family could lead to a caring ethic. As a result, the care perspective may be a component of the psychological conditioning that girls receive. On the other hand, we could look for a genetic explanation. Some differences between males and females emerge at a young age. 1-year-old girls prefer films of faces over films of cars, while 1-year-old boys prefer films of cars. Even 1-day-old girls, but not 1-day-old boys, prefer to look at friendly face over a mechanical object of the same size. This suggests that females are more social by nature than males. Why would this be true if it were true? Charles Darwin's theory of evolution may offer some guidance. The Darwinian struggle for survival can be viewed as a competition to get the most of one's genes into the next generation. Traits that help achieve this will be passed down to future generations, while traits that work against this goal will fade away. In the 1970s, researchers in the field of evolutionary psychology began applying these ideas to human psychology. People today have the emotions and behavioral tendencies that allowed their ancestors to survive and reproduce in the distant past, according to the theory. The main difference between males and females in this regard is that men can father thousands of children, whereas women can only give birth once every 9.5 months until menopause. Males and females have different reproductive strategies as a result. The best strategy for men is to impregnate as many women as possible. After that, the man will be unable to devote much time to any particular child. The best strategy for women is to invest heavily in each child and have sex only with men who are willing to stick around. This causes conflict between men and women and may explain why the sexes have developed opposing attitudes. It famously explains why men have more sex drive than women. It also explains why women are more attracted than men to nuclear family values, particularly the value of caring. This type of explanation is frequently misunderstood. The point is not that people consciously plan how to pass on their genes. No one does. The point is also not that people should calculate in this manner. From an ethical standpoint, they should not. The goal is simply to explain what we see. Implications for the feminist ethical theory. It is easy to see how men's experiences have influenced the ethical theories they have developed. Men have traditionally dominated public life, where relationships are often impersonal and contractual. When interests collide in politics and business, relationships can become adversarial. So we bargain and bargain some more. Furthermore, in public, our decisions may have an impact on large number of people we do not know. As a result, we may attempt to calculate which decisions will result in the best overall outcome for the greatest number of people. What do male theories emphasize? Contracts, the balancing of competing interests, and the calculation of costs and benefits are all examples of impersonal duty. It's no surprise then that feminists accused moral philosophy of being biased toward men. Private concerns are almost entirely absent, and Carol Gilligan's different voice is deafeningly silent. A moral theory tailored to the needs of women would look very different. Bargaining and calculating play a much smaller role in the small-scale world of friends and family, where love and caring reign supreme. Once this point is established, there is no denying that morality must find a home. Private life, on the other hand, is difficult to accommodate within traditional theories. As previously stated, being a loving parent does not entail calculating how one should behave. The same could be said for being a trustworthy friend or coworker. To be loving, loyal, and dependable is to be a different kind of person than to be impartially doing your duty. The distinction between being a certain kind of person and doing your duty is central to a larger conflict between two types of ethical theory. According to virtue ethics, being a moral person entails having certain character traits such as being kind, generous, courageous, just, prudent, and so on. Theories of obligation, on the other hand, emphasize impartial duty. They depict the moral agent as someone who listens to reason, decides what is right, and does it. One of the main arguments for virtue ethics is that it appears to be well suited to balancing the values of public and private life. Simply put, the two spheres necessitate different virtues. Public life necessitates justice and beneficence, whereas private life necessitates love and care. As a result, the ethics of care may be best understood as a subset of the ethics of virtue. This is how many feminist philosophers see it. Although virtue ethics is not a feminist project, Annette Baer refers to it male promoters as honorary women. The verdict on the ethics of care may ultimately depend on the viability of a broader theory of the virtues. There are still many things to discuss about this topic, and we barely scratched the surface. Anyhow, we already have a handful of lessons that we have learned. So, this is it for today, and thank you for listening.